Hey everyone, Coty here, and today I want to talk about, answer a question that I got about NovelCrafter, and I figured I was already recording, so I figured I would just knock this one out too. Here's the question, and maybe I'll put it on screen. A question about what you did in ChatGPT. Now this is referencing my previous video where I kind of talked about using NovelCrafter to write and then ChatGPT to kind of generate ideas. Couldn't you just do that in the chat tab with NovelCrafter? Is there a benefit to leaving the system? And then there's another part of this later on where they ask, you said you use $10 to $15 every few weeks in OpenRouter. How many words/output input tokens are you doing in that period of time? And is Haiku worth it, or do you only get good/decent prose with more expensive models? So 2 questions there. I'm happy to go over both of them. Again, not an expert, but I want to show you at least my results. So first off, let's talk about the first thing. Why use ChatGPT to come up with solutions to problems instead of just doing it all in inside NovelCrafter in the chat tab? So what they're talking about, if you didn't see, essentially when you write in NovelCrafter, you can do this chat right here. You can do it right in, this section, or you can chat with a scene, right? And so we have chat with scene here, and you can kind of bring in context to into NovelCrafter when you're going to chat with the scene. I actually just realized how low my camera is, but anyway, and so you can kind of bring up some different context. Let's say I just wrote this scene, right? And it says the abandoned Paxis colony on AM Prime lies in ruins under a crimson sun. Lone tower stands amid crumbling buildings and defunct terraforming equipment. The air is silent except for creaking metal, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's say we wanted to put something here. I don't know why that's there. We could chat with this scene. Like, let's say I don't know what should happen here next. Give me some ideas. And then we can go ahead and send it. We're on ChatGPT 4 Mini. That is probably one of the cheaper models if we're not going like absolutely free. And this would give us some ideas. So the reason I had it do this is because I want you to look down here where it says context. So there's 3 options here, right? We have full novel outline. This is going to pull the entire outline of your book that you have in NovelCrafter. So each chapter is broken down, or each scene actually is broken down into the outline. And so that would pull in the whole outline. Now, this is good if you're chatting with it and it needs a lot of context. It will pull every one of those little, like these summaries. It's going to pull every single one of those summaries into its context, so it has context from the entire book. So this is good if you need it to kind of span. If you're chatting with a scene or you're chatting just in general in a new thread, it's going to pull all that information for the entire book. But if you just need some help with maybe the scene you're on, or maybe setting up the next scene, then you could just do scene context, or you could actually do both. So you can have it kind of pull out the backstory of the book and have that in its pocket, as well as the current scene that you're working on, so that when you go into your next one, it has all that information. So let me kind of talk about that real quick. So if you do full novel outline, it's going to pull all those summaries, right? So it's going to have an idea of what's happened in your entire book to that point, pulling in that information. That sounds great on the surface. The problem with this, with chatting with this, is that every time you chat with it, it uses tokens from OpenRouter. So chatting with this is a quick and easy way to get answers to the solution. And it is more tailored than going into ChatGPT or even Claude. The problem is that because it's an API, it is counting against your credits. So if you're having it pull the entire novel outline of your book every time you chat with it, and I'm talking every time you type in this little box here and then hit send, it's got to pull that information and pull that information, because you can change the context mid sentence or whatever, or not sentence, but like in between the responses. So if you're having it now, let's say I just needed help with one scene, the scene that I'm working on, I need some help kind of coming up with the next scene. So I only really need the context of the scene that I just wrote. I only need it to have that information. That's really not that bad. That's not that expensive, because you've got a few dozen words here, so it's really not pulling that much. But if you're having pull the entire novel outline, in a regular novel, this might not be an issue, right? Or if you're starting into the novel and you're not very far, it's only going to have a few summaries. So, it's going to be hundreds of words, but that's not that bad. But when you're getting into a massive novel, something like I have, where it's 250,000 words and it's broken into hundreds and hundreds of scenes, yeah, that gets pretty expensive. Every single time it's calling that information. And so keeping that in mind, you kind of have to balance how much information do you need from the AI to get to the next thing. So the reason I even brought up the ChatGPT thing is because I have ChatGPT Plus, right? The $20 a month one. And so if I'm already paying $20 for another AI, why not use that AI to help me kind of get ideas? And I even said in my last video that I do use the chat tab, but if I don't get ideas, then I will go to ChatGPT. So honestly, I do use the chat for the book, not a lot, but often. So I'll use it probably once a week or so, just talking with it, trying to get an idea of how to write a scene, or how to, where I should kind of go, maybe some ideas on the direction, or, actually just kind of, like I said, filling in the gaps. I wrote this, but, what improvements do you have based on this scene? And it's actually really good for analysis, because you could, you write a scene and then just say like, okay, let's start over. Let's do a new, it might go back into that one, but I want to try to do a new chat. Okay. So we're going to get into something really cool, but let's just choose one of the free models. Okay. Let's say this, can you analyze this scene and offer any, let's say, prose suggestions? Okay. So we're on prologue 1, scene 1. And then it's going to give us an analysis and give us suggestions on it. Now you could do line edit analysis. You could do prose analysis. You could do, emotion or sensory analysis. You could say, give me this analysis. In fact, I've never even thought about it, but now that I am, you could probably come up with some kind of prompt that you could reuse over and over again. Please analyze this scene and give me suggestions, or please analyze this and, for grammar or for sensory or for detail or for dialogue or whatever. You could actually probably come up with just a very simple prompt. And if you really don't want to pay money, you could use these free models. So that's kind of where my headspace is. It's balancing paying, because again, every time I chat with this thing, if I'm using a model that you pay for, then you're going to use those credits. You're going to use those the tokens every single time you do that on OpenRouter. So it really comes down to what you want to do. And I do like the chat because you have different options here. So that actually is pretty nice. And using a free one for this aspect is actually not that bad, right? So, it comes down to what you want to pay for. So if I'm already paying, I like I said, I do use the chat tab, but I will generally use ChatGPT if I can't get it, or if I'm going for something really detailed. I feel like ChatGPT is really good at coming up with details for things. So I will just kind of use it to get codex entries or, again, outlines. But if I'm working with a specific scene and I just need direction on how to go, or I wanted to analyze it for any suggestions, then I will just stay in ChatGPT or NovelCrafter. So I do use both, and that's why I would choose one or the other. It really comes down to cost. So if if I'm really dead set and I don't want to go back to ChatGPT, again, like I talked about in my other video, the problem I have with ChatGPT is it does have a memory if you pay for the plus, but even when it's writing sections, it just seems to lose part of it. So it's like it'll remember it at the top, but by the bottom of the thread, it's written something completely different. And I'll even tell it, like, why did you forget this? I even told you not to forget it. Oh, you're right. And then it puts it back in, and then it does it again. So I don't know. AI is great, but it's not perfect. So, it's really, it comes down to kind of maybe your testing. But again, there's free models out there. And here's what's cool. So, I guess the second question that was asked was, is Haiku worth it, or do you only get good/decent pros with more expensive models? Haiku's okay. So I have used it. I did try it out a few times. It's okay. Like, I would say that Sonnet, just 3.5 Sonnet is just good. Like, it just is good overall. Like, it just can write decent prose. It's not like the best. Could you get away with Haiku? Yeah, you could probably get away with it. I mean, ideally, we would all be kind of reading over it anyway and then kind of distilling it down. What I plan on doing is I'm going to write it. I'm going to have the AI fill in the gaps, and then I'm going to have AI analyze it on top of that and then go back and make changes on that on top of that. So it's going to be double written, but also double edited, if that makes sense. So I believe that AI can work with us to help us because we have blind spots just as the AI has blind spots, but we can kind of work together and compensate for our lack with these technologies. So I don't believe in just clicking a button and having it write a book. I have done that. I have tried it, and most of it is garbage. I have tried it and put out books out there, and then afterwards I was like really disappointed in myself that I even did that. So, just being honest, like I have done it, and I'm like, man, this is just, it's not good. It's soulless. It's empty. But in using the tools to kind of fill gaps or to shore up weaknesses or to help us kind of see, what we're missing, I do think it does have a good use for that. Now, so hopefully that answers that. I have used Haiku. It's okay. Again, it just depends on the model. Every model acts differently. Like I said, like 4.0 Mini is super cheap and it writes decently, but the problem is it goes off on its own tangent. So it doesn't even follow the structure I've put out sometimes. It just like writes whatever it wants, or it just keeps going past what I've actually written for, for the outline of that scene. So I'm just like, okay, pull it back. Wizard kind of does the same thing. And then some of these other ones like Llama, it's like it'll write it. It doesn't even put, quotations some of the times, or, some of the words are like mashed together. It's so weird. So anyway, I would just test it out. And if you really just want to test out AI writing and not pay a lot of money, try some of the free models. And this is where I want to get into OpenRouter specifically. So we're going to move on to the third thing, on cost. Because OpenRouter is really cool. I actually really like OpenRouter. If you've never used it, or if you're not, too familiar with it, basically it's just kind of a connection point, like a fulcrum, if you will, or some kind of, center, where a bunch of LLMs are there through that service, and then you just connect to the service, and then you have access to all of those without needing an API for every single one of them. So essentially, all of these LLMs are distilled through OpenRouter, and then you get to use them all with one API from OpenRouter. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. But anyway, so I want to talk about cost. I'm not ashamed to kind of show you what I pay. I'm going to show you the models real quick, because there's tons of models on here, right? And even in rankings, you can kind of see what people are using. And so you can even see that a lot of people are using 3.5 Sonnet. It's really good. And it is on the more expensive side, $3 per million tokens. Oh, input, and then $15 for output tokens. It's a lot. It's expensive. And once I show you some of these other ones, you'll see why. But you can see it right here. Boom. NovelCrafter. Number 2 usage for Claude, because this just, the proof is in the pudding that, people like using Claude 3.5 for writing. It like I said, the proof is in the pudding. But if we look at some of the other models, And this is what I want to get to in just a second. Okay, so let's say 4.0, right? So 4.0, actually, let's do this. I'm going to show you my costs. I'm just going to be honest. Okay, so this is my activity. You can see that I use a lot of Claude 3.5, just a lot of it. Again, it's good, but look at these costs, okay? So when we're looking at costs, look at this cost on 4.0, right? And now this was 1,000 tokens, 1,000, okay? And this cost is not even 1 cent. Not even 1 cent, okay? Not even. And then this was that llama one that I did in my last video, I think. I don't think it was this one. 0 cost. So they truly are free to use if you use some of the older models. That's generally what they are, is the older models. But now we're looking at NovelCrafter with, Claude Sonnet, and we're looking at, almost 2 cents per transaction. That's the 15 cents. Sorry, almost 20 cents is what I meant. So we're looking at 15 cents a transaction. 15 cents. Now that doesn't sound massive in and of itself, but when you start adding all these up, that's a lot of transactions. It adds up real quick. And I don't know if it's going to show any days before that. Oh, I guess it is. Okay, so yeah, and now we go back and we look at 4.0 mini, super cheap, right? Llama, super cheap. Wizard is pretty cheap as well. And then Sonnet is about 10 times the price. Do you see this? And this was the input to the output. So Claude even gave us less, and it was 10 times more. Isn't that crazy? So Claude really is not cheap, but it is good. Can you get away with some of the other models? Absolutely. But here's why I like OpenRouter, because they get all of the updated models. You get to try stuff out. And this, I didn't even know that this was out. Today is the 9th, so this has probably been out for a day or two at least. And this is available. So what this is cool, because I don't know how good it is, and it doesn't look like a lot of people are using it for writing. So I don't know if this is just because not enough people have jumped on it or know that it's available, or it's not good for writing, right? We don't see a whole lot of tokens here. This is not, a whole lot. And if we go back to rankings and we do trending, we can kind of see. So we're not seeing it here in trending, which tells me it may not be that great. But it is free. It's a 0 cost. You can even see it if we go back and look at it. It tells you the cost right here. So 0 input, 0 output, meaning it doesn't cost anything to use it at all. It's free because they want people to use it to kind of so that they can, experiment with it and they can see the results and stuff. So they give it out for free for a little bit. And then obviously if it's good, they'll charge later on. But what's cool about OpenRouter is you can actually see what people are using. You can see the trending. So a lot of people are using this. Let's go into it and see if if NovelCrafter is one of them. Not seeing NovelCrafter here. Not seeing NovelCrafter here. We can even go into apps. Still no NovelCrafter. So this is one thing that I look at. And, the question was asked, is it okay to use cheaper models? Yeah, you can use whatever you want, right? But what I do is I come in here into OpenRouter, because I'm already going to be using it, and kind of look and see, are other people using it for writing? Because there are other writing tools and stuff out there, but NovelCrafter is pretty big, and if people were going to use it for writing, we would be seeing it in that, right? So I'm not seeing it in any of that. This Llama 3.3, I think I did try it once, and I was like, that's okay, right? But a lot of these LLMs are not necessarily built for writing, for creative writing. They're built for problem solving and for, writing content for things within scale. So it's not necessarily for that. So I understand why, not all these models are good for writing because they're just not meant for that. But Claude is meant for that. And you see this 3.5 Sonnet, self-moderated. That's like the newer version. And then 3.5 Sonnet, regular. And I bet you if I go into both of these, we're going to see NovelCrafter on the older one and NovelCrafter on the top one. So I'm just saying, you know, what you use, you can use whatever you want, and you can, I would just, you know, maybe test it. If you could just throw $15 in there. This is interesting. I didn't know this. So GPT-4o Mini. So I actually have this service. I'm not recommending it. It's got okay features. It's got a lot of tools within it, so that's kind of the plus. But as far as the quality of the tools, I don't think they're that great. So I'm not recommending ℙ𝕃𝔼𝕊𝔼, but I do have it. So, but what I wanted to see was how many, I guess it's not going to show me how much usage there is for it. But anyway, this is what I want to know, right? So what I'm looking for is, are other people on NovelCrafter using this specifically? And a lot of people are using Claude. So I guess, again, that kind of just shows you that people just value Claude 3.5 over really anything else right now. There's some other decent models, I guess, but as far as for writing, this is it. But anyway, that's pretty much it. That's all I got. So I hope that made sense. I hope that answered all the questions. Like I said, maybe I'll put them on screen, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So I'll see you guys in the next one. If you guys have any other questions about NovelCrafter or writing with AI, leave them in here and I'll try to get to them. No guarantees, but yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. God bless. Bye.